You want to say?
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Should I lower the camera?
Thank you for joining us this evening. We're in our 22nd evening of the English program, mashallah, how the time goes. And this is a very special night. We're on the eve of the 23rd grade power, mashallah. And we're going to begin this evening with a Quranic recitation. We're going to have Hajj Ali Libda do the Arabic. We're going to have Alex Ramdan do the English. Let's have a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Chop all that out.
السلام عليكم.
Islam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا آمنت بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم الفاتحة.
بسم الله.
صلى محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, by the sky and by the visitor by the night, and what will explain to you what is the visitor by the night. The shining star of intense brightness, there is no soul without a protector over it. Now, let man only think from what he is created. He is created from a drop emitted, proceeding from between the backbone and the ribs. Surely it is able to bring him back. The day that things secret will be tested, will have no power and no helper, by the sky that returns, and by the earth which opens out, gushing springs. Watch, this is the word that separates out. It is not a thing for amusement. As for them, they are only plotting a scheme, and I am planning a scheme. Therefore, give a little time for the disbelievers. Bear with them gently. Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you for that beautiful recitation. Let's honor them by having a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Just a quick point, we all have these little handy devices here. If we could double check them to make sure they're on silent or turned off, I would greatly appreciate that so we don't have any interruptions. And secondly, I just want to point out, I don't know if anyone was not here on previous nights, there is a dinner for iftar this coming Friday, the 1st, $15 per ticket, $150 per table. Any questions you could ask me after, or you could see the office, inshallah. Without further ado, I want to bring our beloved Imam here at the Islamic Center to the podium. It's my great privilege and honor to bring you Smat al-Sheikh, Dr. Ibrahim Khazaruni. Let's have a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد واسمع دعائي إذا دعوتك واسمع ندائي إذا ناديتك وأقبل علي إذا ناجيتك. O Lord, salute Muhammad and his pure and blessed household. Listen to my supplication when I call you. Hear my appeal as I submit them, and come closer as I call. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. Is there anyone that responds to the petition and the prayer of a helpless and removes their distress and make you the vicegerents of earth? Is there any God but Allah? How little do you know? We have come possibly to the most important night of the month of Ramadan. I say possibly because still there are those who say tomorrow night could be the night for them, so that possibility is open. The night of the 23rd is the night of prayer. It's a night that we have to spend it on petitioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking for forgiveness, repentance, pleading, even if the heart breaks, crying, and generally speaking, asking Allah to help us during these nights. It's the night which also there are a number of literature, hadith and others, and as well as verses in the Quran, that our destiny for next year is sealed. Contrary to the belief that says, or the opinion that says it's written, no. The destiny was written on the night of the 19th. And this space was created, and tonight it will be sealed to see how much contribution we make as agents to changing that destiny between the night of the 19th up to tonight. Last night, and the topics that we discussed during the previous night, subhanAllah, they somehow complemented each other and linked to the holy nights of Layal al-Qadr. Specifically last night I touched upon what Christianity calls the unconditional love of God, and within our literature, it's the distinction between Rahman and Rahim, where Rahman is considered that general, all-inclusive blessing or mercy of Allah that covers everyone, and Rahim is the conditional. I'm grateful to Hajj Ali reminding me just now that some people used to interpret Rahim as a special type of Rahmah reserved for a special group of people. Because we are Shia, then we deserve that Rahmah. Because we are Muslim, then we deserve that Rahmah. It's far from it. It's a conditional Rahmah that will be given to those who fulfill those conditions, irrespective of whether you are Shia, Sunni, Muslim, non-Muslim, it doesn't matter. Because it is action that speaks, not words. So Rahim, if Rahman is what we call the mercy that leads to the creation, Rahim is the mercy that leads to salvation in the hereafter. And for salvation you need to work. The notion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the messengers, gave them all the guidance, and provided them with all the necessary means that humanity should use to guide itself, plus the added intellect. And then for us to sit and expect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of that unique mercy that Allah has, we have to be given a one-way ticket to heaven, whether we are going to work or we don't. This is not something which is rational in the Bible. For tonight, there are some food for thought issues that I want you to bear in mind. I have touched upon a few of them during the previous nights. Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants its servant, its creation, its creatures, to ask and to pray. قُلْ مَا يَعْبَأُ بِكُمْ رَبِّي لَوْلَا دُعَاء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to pay attention if you don't ask. So asking is critical. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, there is a hadith, مَا مِنْ شَيْءٍ أَفْضَلُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ مِنْ أَنْ يُسْأَلْ وَيُطْلَبْ مَا عِنْدَهُ. Nothing is more beneficial, more worthy before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the servants actually turning their face to Allah and asking Allah. وَمَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ أَبْغَضُ إِلَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ مِمَّنْ يَسْتَكْبِرُ عَنْ عِبَادَتِهِ وَلَا يَسْأَلُ مَا. Those who become arrogant and they don't prostrate themselves in front of Allah and ask. These are the ones that, because they see themselves as some kind of big shot, this is not something that Allah wants. وَمَا مِنْ شَيْءٍ مَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ أَبْغَض, more detested individual before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than those who feel too proud to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are a number of verses and a hadith that clearly stresses this point. That dua has a critical and vital role in our guidance. ادعوا ربكم تضرعا. Whether you are in open or you are in private, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إن الله أبغض لخلقه المسألة. And nothing is more distasteful before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for people to go and ask other people before asking Allah. You ask Allah for guidance. You ask Allah for support. You ask Allah for everything. Allah might create the facility, the necessary causes that somebody else would come and help you. That's no problem. But before moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you go to another person like yourself and say, okay, I'm in this distress and so on. That's not something that is recommended. وَلَيْسَ شَيْءٌ أَحَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ مِنْ أَنْ يُسْأَلْ فَلَا يَسْتَحِي أَحَدَكُمْ أَنْ يَسْأَلَ اللَّهِ وَلَوْ بِشَعْسِ نَعْلٍ. It's a metaphorical use of language. Even if it is worth nothing, still go to Allah and ask for it. A shoelace. If you want some help, even for nothing, ask Allah. That's the place that you have to tell. إِذَا قَلَّ الدُّعَاء نَزَلَ الْبَلَاء. This is hadith from the word. If you don't ask, you don't pray, you don't petition, you don't submit, you don't cry, you don't allow your heart to break, you think you feel too arrogant before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then bala and calamities will come. In essence, this is a fundamental difference between those who are muttaqi and they consider themselves the taqwa and Allah plays a major role in their lives, and those who are egocentric. Those who are they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala plays a major role in their life, always consider that no matter what we do, there is another partner with us that is not going to abandon us. Remember the story I gave you last night? When the Shaykh, after giving all the little bit of meat to the poor Christian family, and then went back out of hunger, went to sleep, he was woken up. He said, I saw a big bundle of sweet bread in the hand of someone that I have not seen in my life. So I asked, and he said, the person that gave me this bread to give it to you told me to remind you of this. The person who you supported another person and you provided them with a little bit of meat that you have, do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to abandon you? He's not going to abandon us. But وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي, again we go to Surah Al-Baqarah, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. But what is the prerequisite condition? What's the first step? فَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. If you ask, we can't ask, sit here and wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, zap, remote control and do things. We have to ask. These people who are muttaqi, they consider that yes, we are responsible, we are obligated, and we are supposed to work as hard as possible. But at the same time, as we walk, there is another power with us. That's the power, the mysterious power of Allah that controls, on a broad scale, controls things. Not on a micromanagement, but on a great scheme of things. And dua is one of those fundamental issues that can change our directions. We have been discussing about dua on various nights, and particularly the presence of a number of verses in the Holy Quran that talks about ask Allah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to respond. And we discussed it and we said in most cases we don't get any answer. Last night as I was searching for a hadith, I came across this hadith that aptly represents our own predicament. One of the disciples of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq goes to him and asks the Imam, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I have a question. There is something bothering me. So what is it? He said, there are verses in the Holy Quran that I've been reading, but I don't see them manifesting outside, taking shape. Imam says, what is it? He said, آيتان في كتاب الله أطلبهما. Number one, قول الله عز وجل أدعوني أستجب. You pray and I will respond. We've been praying for so long and we haven't received any response. So Imam begins using that Socratic kind of rationalization, asks the first question, says, do you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is misrepresenting himself? Telling fibs? He said, no, Ya Rasulullah, I'm not saying this. He said, then let me explain. Let me inform you the process. This is the protocol of prayer that we must observe. Once I read the hadith, I went back to a number of prayers that it becomes a habit that we recite. Munajat Sha'baniyya, Dua Iftitah, Dua Abu Hamza, they all fit this modality and this description. Let's first look at what Imam tells him and then go back to these dua and see how they are presented. First, من أطاع الله عز وجل فيما أمره ثم دعا من جهة الدعاء أجاب. There are certain conditions that are needed to be fulfilled for the prayer to be accepted. تبدأ بحمد الله. Ask by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you just throw your hand out, I want $1 million, it's not going to happen. I want health and longevity, it's not going to happen. I want the crisis in my life to disappear, it's not going to happen. First, you start with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. تبدأ فتحمد الله وتذكر نعمه. And then you list all the ni'am and the what you have received, all the mercies and the favors that you have received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثم تشكره. And then you thank him for these blessings. Then you say salawat on the Holy Prophet and his family, then you start. تبدأ فتحمد الله وتذكر نعمه عندك ثم تشكره ثم تصلي على النبي then ثم تذكر ذنوبك then you start listing your own sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that we are sinners and what are our sins. But for us to humble ourselves and list them one by one, reminding ourselves of what we have done, this is the critical issue. Now, before I go on, let's go to a few of the du'as that we have. Du'a is the du'a that every night we recite. Allahumma inni aftatihu as-sala'a bihamdik. Before the prayer starts, is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة. Then اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك. You permitted me. This is a blessing. You start listing the blessing. Then فكم, now listing the ni'am or the blessing, the favors that we have received. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجت. How many of calamities in my life that you have removed. Now we begin to list them. وهموم قد كشفتها. And then things that have bothered me. وعثرة قد أقلتها. Pain that you have reduced. ورحمة قد نشرتها. وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. Then after listing all these blessings, Alhamdulillah alladhi lam yali, goes back to the praising of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before page 2 or 3, we begin to notice what Imam is asking. So, now let's go to Sha'baniyah, Munajat Sha'baniyah, which we normally recite late at night. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that was the beginning of it. Wasma' du'a'i idha da'awta. Wasma' du'a'i, first salawat. And then goes further. Allahumma ilahi in haramta. Before he goes anywhere else, reminds himself that if you remove me, or if you don't give me the blessing that you, فَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُ. If you withhold your favor, who's going to give it to you? وَإِنْ خَذَلْتَنِي. If you don't respond to me, if you don't respond to my prayer, فَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُ. Who's going to help? إِلَهِي أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ غَضَبِكَ وَحُلُولِ سَخَطِكَ. I come to you, ask you to protect me from your own wrath. No one else. And the list, إلهي إن كنت غير مستأهل لرحمتك فأنت أهل أن تجود علي بفضلك. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve the mercy. If I don't deserve the mercy, but you, your mercy, appeal to the grand mercy. So the etiquette and the way we should do it, the formulation of the prayer, we have to follow a structure. Going back to the hadith, so Uthman says, I asked him, ثُمَّ تَذْكُرُ ذُنُوبَكَ. Then you list all your own shortcomings and your own sin. فَتَقُولُ اللَّهُمَّ إِنِّي أَعْتَذِرُ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ ذُنُوبِي. I beg you for your forgiveness from the sins that I have. وَأَسْتَغْفِرُكَ وَأَتُوبُ إِلَيْكَ. These are all the necessary conditions. And at the end, فَتَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ وَتَدْعُوهُ. Then you ask Allah for the things that you need. We have got into the habit of expecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first of all to respond as if there's nothing else to do, sitting over there and respond to our prayer. And then the presentation of the prayer is not properly organized and properly structured. These, some hadith for tonight, especially tonight. يقول الله, this is the hadith from the one prophet. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في كل ليلة من شهر رمضان 3 مرات. It's the use of language. هل من سائل فأعطيه سؤاله. Is there someone who is pleading his case or her case and asking a question and they have something so I can give it to them? هل من تائب فأتوب إليه? People who are repent, and I will accept them. هل من مستغفر, asking for forgiveness, and I respond. And particularly on a night like tonight. They say the latter, the last third of the night, is extremely important for answering of the prayer. And again, we have a number of hadith. If you look at the life of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the last 10 nights of Ramadan, he never slept. All the beds were rolled up, and he always spent the night, the prayer, the sleep came after the month of Ramadan. During the night, the day, probably half an hour of nap. That's it. And he would put cold water next to him, splash it over the face of the families that are sitting with him, and to get ready for the prayer, so they would not be sleeping. There are a number of recommendations for tonight, brothers and sisters. It's very critical. Not only your own destiny, probably the destiny of others that you can pray for them are at stake and they are waiting for your prayers. The brother was here last night, I think somebody, whether the other brother that was asking whether dua for the deceased during these special time will be given to them. They are waiting for us for that, to provide them with something. So here are the list of recommendations. Do not eat full iftar. Unfortunately, one of the habits that we have. Yes, we have been holding ourselves for 18 hours or 19 hours. We would consume 5,000 calories within 10-15 minutes, not realizing the consequence. When you overload with carb and everything else, the system wants to shut down, wants to go to sleep. And it's not going to be conducive to being able to sit during the night and offer prayer. Break your fast with some small bit something. Normally, recommendation is little bit of milk and a date for 2 days. The sugar within the date is enough and sufficient to increase your sugar in your body, and the milk would reduce the acidity in the stomach. You don't feel hungry. And then start your prayer, du'as and so on. Do your salat and everything else. The wajibat are today. Then come back later. Come back to eat little by little. Don't eat all in one go. And then every time you eat little bit, go back to the prayer. Use cold water to wipe. These are instructions by our own professors and so on. Wipe yourself, face, and those who are around yourself as soon as you feel sleepy or just lethargic. Turn to drinks that keep you up, normally tea, coffee, and so on, but on moderation. Step out of the room. If the room is congested, step out to have a little bit of fresh air and refresh and come back again. And pray as a family together, so that each one supports the other. If you do it by yourself and you feel tired, there is nobody around to support you. Pray as a group, as a family, and stay up so they encourage each other. And one final recommendation, praying for all. Not just for yourself. Because your prayer may not be acceptable for yourself, but your prayer surely will be acceptable for others. Inshallah, we will continue with our program, but remember this for those who took Monday or considered Monday to be the beginning of the month. Tonight is the night of the 23rd. Spend some time in really working hard tonight. If you don't go to sleep tonight, nothing is going to happen. But there's huge demand at stake. Prayer, ask your parents if they are around to be present, ask partners and so on to be around, children and so on to participate. Bring them in at least early part of the night with some kind of jama'ah prayer or some kind of recitation together, etc. But make it a family occasion that inshallah we support each other. and pray for everyone. Let's end with a recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha for all the deceased, including Mahmoud Ramdan, Sheikh Jawad Sharri, and then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the opportunity during this night to be able to work as hard as we can, and we may be able to change the future for our own destiny, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Any questions? Go ahead.
If you have to work, you have to go to work like 6, 7, and a half, and you can't take off. You can't stay up all night and go the next day to work 10 hours.
As much as you can. I mean, this is the logic. If you need certain amount of certain hours as a minimum of sleep, then what you can do, since we have a number of traditions or a hadith that says the latter part of the night are critical, you can go to sleep early, take a few hours of sleep, and then wake up refreshed, and then you can continue. Yeah, I mean, around, say, if the prayer is around, say for argument's sake, 4 o'clock in the morning, you can go to sleep. If you eat light, you can go to sleep early, and then say around 1:30, 2 o'clock, you wake up and you continue with the prayer, and you have enough time to be able to eat something as well. But generally speaking, people, if they can, I mean, this is all depends on one's condition. If you can, it's better to stay up, and particularly when Salat Subh is around 4 o'clock, and one needs to go to work 8 or 9 o'clock. Still, there are a few hours that one can sleep a few hours and get refreshed. But if everyone has his or her own condition, if you feel that it's for you or anyone else is practically impossible to stay all night, or you can't do it as a family because there are job obligation, etc., whatever it's doable. I didn't get that.
Can I explain the difference between praying as a duty, just like praying, and doing your wajibat, and praying with khushu'?
Yes. Khushu' is a condition which should be included in whether you do a prayer, the obligatory prayer. Khushu' means you do it in a way that the heart is directed or focused. So whether we offer our obligatory, the 5 daily prayers, we should do it with khushu', or whether we do our recommended prayers. And when we say prayer, unfortunately, English is unable to make this distinction because they all say all prayers. There is salawat al-yawmiyya, which is we have 5 daily prayers. There are mustahabbat, recommended prayers, which are fall within nawafil. Every salat that has certain prayers before and after. And there are what we call supplications. They're just texts that we recite or communication that we have. These fall all within the prayers. And in every single one of them, it has to be focused, which means khushu'. Khushu' is a heartfelt condition when we focus on what we are saying, what we are doing. So yes, there is, from a religious point of view or from an obligational point of view, there is a difference between the 5 daily prayer and, say, nawafil and mustahabbat prayers. And the supplications that we have. But they all fall under this category of prayer. But they all have to be presented or offered or performed with a clear khushu', which means focus is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Muhammad, you had a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How do you deal with friends and families that don't believe in Allah?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, you have to work with them. You have to be nice to them, work with them, and give them advice. And slowly, it will change. If you will deal with them in a nice way, don't say bad things to them, don't say rude things to them, just try to work with them and remind them that, look, as individuals, as Muslims, or as people, they have responsibility towards Allah. So if you work with them slowly, and remind them constantly, hopefully, inshallah, it will work. So, well, we were asking the sisters to come up with a question. Tonight they left the brother out as well, so he's not around. Okay. Any other questions? Well, first, the night that this issue of khums and zakat was presented, I said that zakat falls as a tax, let's call it, only on certain businesses. That normally most people that we have don't come close to that kind of business. Ordinary people that either working or they have their own businesses, etc., they fall within the category of khums, which is 20%. Now, the best way is for people who really are conscious and conform to this, is to start from the moment you start work. Then what you do, you start, the moment that you start work and there is an income, you take 1 year after that as the beginning of the year in which you assess your khums. And you go through what you have earned, and you calculate what are your expenditures, and whatever is left, it's taxable, khums. With regard to a very important point that you raised, Islam does not accept excessive use of money as an excuse for what we call expenditure. If I have a social responsibility towards the poor and the needy, the money that I'm supposed to give them, it's their portion within my wealth. If I can survive with, say, a car with the standard of my life, say $20,000, I'll go and get a Bentley for $250,000, and then I say I don't have anything left. This is not acceptable. So one has to remain, the assessment of expenditure has to remain within what we call reasonable for one's standard of living. So this kind of expenditure that is wasteful, or even when it comes to food, it doesn't have to be all with clothes. I can do with the suit which is, say, $70 or $100 or say $200. I go and buy Yves Saint Laurent and I have $600 or $800. That extra money shouldn't have been spent. So anything that goes into excessive use, that technically speaking should not be it's not part of your expenditure. This comes as tax. I remember many years ago, somebody sent this to one of the grand scholars and asked, I have a carpet. There's nothing wrong with it. And my wife is insisting that I have to go and buy a much newer carpet or rug, which is going to cost me money. And this question came up. And if I do that, I will not have anything left, and I have a debt on my shoulder. So is it possible to do it and not pay khums? The answer was no. If you need your need, expenditure is part of your need. Unfortunately, the material lifestyle in the West, the line between want and need has been removed. So now these days, when part of marketing of anything is, there is no mention that this is what I want. They say this is what you need. I don't need it. I can function without it. But it's want that is limitless. So technically you are responsible for the expenditure within reasonable and rational limit. If you excessively start wasting the money, no, it becomes something on your shoulder that you have to pay. Inshallah, it comes under the concept of adl and Allah's justice. The calamities that exist, or how do they conform with Allah's justice? If Allah is adl and just, then how do we explain the existence of calamities? Are all of them as a consequence of our own deed? Or no, some of them are consequence of what we call the conditions that are around? Or some of them might be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to test us with. Please, inshallah, if you want, we can discuss it. If you want, we can discuss that tomorrow. Yeah, inshallah, we can start this as well. The first, I think, was the second time that we had a question from the audience that becomes the foundation of the topic for our conversation. Or the third time. One was Brother Muhammad. And I believe last time it was again yours, the question regarding the verse and issue of Ramdan talking about Allah's mercy, etc. So we will talk this tomorrow night. Inshallah, if it's well. Well, my final advice to everyone, take the night and really go for prayer. And pray in every shape, form, and way that you can. As a group, by yourself. This is critical night. If we miss it, who knows whether we will have this opportunity again by next year. Yes. Yes. You see, there are some form of prayers that clearly specify, but others pray. I have mentioned this in the past. Quran, when you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to speak with you, you go and read Quran. When you want to communicate with Allah, you use prayer. And for it doesn't make any difference what language we use, because it's a personal communication with Allah. There are some specific supplications and so on that we have been recorded that we have to offer them. But when I want to ask or petition and ask Allah, list my sins and shortcomings, it doesn't have to be in a specific language, one language or the other. They can be in any language that one prefers. And pray for everyone. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. This concludes our program tonight. I want to thank our beloved Imam for enlightening us this evening and thank everyone for attending. We really appreciate it. Wassalam.
Do I just click this button?
No.
Just exit? Just like that?